Hi there, welcome back to the channel. It is great to have you with me yet again on Austin Thinks. Today I want to talk about Faith by Pop Smoke, a new release. I didn't think I was going to do too many new releases. The idea of the channel was mainly to reflect on some of my favorite works, whether it be albums or movies in the past, but this one was too good to pass up. I really, really enjoyed it. This is coming off the back of Shoot for the Moon, Aim for the Stars, his 2020 posthumous release, which I thought was a really, really tasteful release by his team, by his label. I thought they did right by him. I thought that it streamed remarkably well, considering that these were basically unreleased songs that he had stored up in the vault. Who knows the context that he had planned to release some of these songs in, and yet they went on to do 600, 700 million streams. So it was really remarkable, and that to me was just confirmation that Pop Smoke was well on his way to becoming the next genuinely generational rapper, the likes of which we might not have seen since Drake, since Kendrick, since even maybe Travis Scott. I think he was definitely on his way to becoming that, and so that album for me, if anything, just made it that much sadder that he had passed away when he did. I feel like he just had the voice, the charisma. He had the look about him. He had the streets, the clubs, the dorm parties, the car rides. He had the guys, he had the girls. He was all encompassing, and I think he was the sort of artist that you could just play for a casual fan and they could just understand it straight away. His voice just demands so much presence when you turn on a Pop Smoke song. And so that to me is what really draws me back to hearing what his team puts out for him next. And it obviously brings me to this one. So Pop Smoke, Faith. Let's get stuck into it. So track 1, Faith. This is almost in Jay-Z retirement album fashion. It's Pop Smoke's mother really starting us off to contextualize the man, the project itself. It's almost a soliloquy where she's talking about how many may have expected it to be a gospel album, and in many ways it is a gospel album. It is the good word. It is designed to uplift, to make the listener believe in themselves. I love that she leaves us on the note of the smoke will never clear. I thought that was a really neat touch, and I love the dichotomy of having her doing this uplifting kind of piece of dialogue, but beneath her there's these ominous kind of 808 synths. It's really the two sides of the coin when it comes to Pop Smoke. So yeah, really awesome intro and the perfect way to start the album. So track 2 is More Time. It opens with this really, really cool classic gangster New York jazzy piano. Then Pop Smoke's voice. I mean, it's just so good, man. It reminds me of my favorite track off the last one, which was Gangster. Just that piano and the way his ear for melody. It's simple and it's just so effective. I also love the classic KRS-One vocal chop. I think I first heard that in a Logic song, actually, off Under Pressure. So I'm sure many people would recognize it from that. But it really places Pop in the canon of New York hip-hop. It really kind of sets him in this family tree, this lineage, like he belongs here now. His face is in that Hall of Fame. I also love, for a voice as deep and as full as his is, his sense of tone is just immaculate. Like, I don't know how he does it. It's also obviously the engineering as well, but the way that the beats and the vocals kind of mold into the beats, and how it never sounds drony or flat. It kind of always has texture. It's always interesting. It's really, really awesome stuff. A bit of a stank face when it came to the line, what was it, break legs like Paul George. It's pretty nasty quotable right there. I think he says it twice, which is quite perfect. But yeah, I love how it starts the album with this great momentum, a lot of energy going into the next tracks. Could have probably used a second hook, but at the same time, I like how they don't overstay their welcome, and they get straight into track 3, which is Tell the Vision, Kanye West and Pusha T appearing on this one. I won't lie, when I first read Kanye as a feature, I thought, well, this could go one of two ways. I think he has the capacity to really elevate songs, but I think he can also derail songs too. I think that he can really make it the Kanye show, which, I mean, some might love, but it can also kind of come across as a bit self-indulgent and selfish, which obviously is his brand. But look, needless to say, in this one, I think it's perfect. Same as the other song. It doesn't overstay its welcome, his feature here. He says what he needs to say, trippin', wildin', on, television. I think the animated delivery really gives a sense of urgency on top of the menacing instrumentation. Then when the child's choir comes in with Angie Martinez, that's one of those chef kisses on the album. It's great structuring. Angie does her thing, the sample drops out and Pop comes in. And it's just like his voice. Every time it's like giant footsteps thumping, immediate presence. He commands your ears. He commands your attention. I also thought Pusha T was kind of interesting on this. The first time I heard it, I wasn't feeling it. He kind of comes in, he sounds a bit goofy. It's not the traditional Pusha T cadence where he's doing the coke talk. He's kind of speaking very matter of fact and very kind of effortlessly. And what he's saying is very on the nose, basically saying Tyler's got the album of the year for now, but either Push or Pop Smoke's about to take it from him. You rarely hear rappers talk this candidly in their songs, but it's kind of grown on me. And I actually think that the way he approaches his voice on this, it only serves to elevate Pop Smoke's voice more. Because when it's like the Still Dre thing from the next episode, when everyone you put around you kind of has a softer, weaker voice, it just makes your voice pop that much more. And I think it really has that effect for him on Television, track 3. Let's move on. So track 4, Manslaughter. This might be among my very favorites on the album. So The Dream coming right out the gate with a really cool gospel, almost like reminds me of Lost in the World of My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. The way it kind of is layered and creates this soundscape. It's just awesome. It's really, really aesthetically pleasing. I just think that it also serves to keep up this awesome momentum that I've been talking about building in the album. The way nothing is staying too long. It's always different. It's always giving us something different. I love that they just give us little breaks where, it comes out the gate with this a cappella section and it's not trying to give you, 20 808 songs in a row, 20 drill songs in a row. They're doing different things. And although that was some people's problem with the album, it happens to be what I really enjoy about the album, is just how diverse and versatile it is. And then, of course, on this one, the sample comes in and it's just this rich, soulful, luxurious sound. Right off the bat, it's just like Rose is right at home. And he does what he does. The chord progression is absolutely gorgeous. I love that it's not just a basic loop. It takes its time to build. I think it might even be like a 4-bar loop. So it really takes its time in going places. Kind of reminds me a bit of what Tyler was doing on Flower Boy. The way that he would just let the synths build and they would do certain things that wouldn't even repeat or loop because it's just like so dope. You heard it once, you know what you heard. If you want to hear it again, go ahead and rewind it. And so this song really has that effect on me. Another chef's kiss moment for sure. And of course the Dream outro, kind of reflecting on death. It's a genuinely touching moment, and I think a great way to finish off a 3-way collab where everyone really pulls their weight. So Manslaughter, definitely, I'll do my track list ranking at the end, but I could definitely see that being up very high for me. Track number 5, we've got About a Million. I was really excited to hear 21 and 4-2 together. I've loved watching 4-2's come up. I think his voice kind of reminds me, I'm sure he gets a lot of Kodak comparisons. It reminds me of that. It's kind of that slimy, slurry kind of voice. It's kind of messy. It's not trying to be too on beat or too precise, but it just works. It just kind of oozes charisma. So that being said, I thought the song was solid. The sample probably didn't do as much for me as the others. It's kind of that stock standard internet money, gunner type guitar thing. The drums and the bass are pretty much what you'd expect from pop. Nothing wrong with it. Although there's not a lot about this song that leaps out for me. I think the first 4 might have spoilt me a bit, that I was expecting it to go in so many kind of different directions and explore so many soundscapes. And this one was just more of a standard song, just kind of predictable, which there's nothing wrong with that. My final note on this one, though, is 21 Savage, yet again stepping up his pen game. He is genuinely becoming a great lyricist, and I hope he continues to grow that aspect of his artistry, because I think it's something that doesn't really get paid attention to in that lane, but it's good to see someone just really going for it and pushing themselves to elevate with every release. So props to him for that. Let's move on to track 6, Brush 'Em. So I was unaware, but apparently this song leaked or had a snippet out like 2 years ago. But nonetheless, this shit absolutely slaps. This is probably the most traditional Pop Smoke type song on the album. He's trading bars back and forth with one of his day ones. Production-wise, is in his wheelhouse exactly. It's got that ethereal, haunting sample, deep sliding 808s, just perfect execution. Really just fun. Doesn't go on too long. It's just it hits you in the face, and it leaves you before you realize, and it just makes you want to hear it again. And I think their voices complement each other really well. Again, another voice coming on that doesn't try and outdo Pop Smoke. It's not trying to out Pop Smoke him. It's just it's existing in a different pocket. And yeah, so for that reason, they complement each other really nicely. Track 7, Top Shotter. Bit of a controversial one. I know a lot of people didn't want to hear him over this Neptune's kind of beat. I know that the original song had a traditional 808 mellow type beat. I don't know if it was actually produced by the man himself, but regardless, for me, this production is great. It's ridiculously good. It's bouncy. It's got those warm Neptune's keys, but kind of morphed into a harder Pop Smoke beat. It's a really cool place for these two styles to meet each other, because they're so different. One's kind of this 2000s artsy alternative sound, and the other's very much 2020s, street sound. So for them to marry each other in this way, I love that sort of stuff. It keeps things interesting, and that's what I'm all about. I'd rather be weird, take a risk, than give you the stock standard thing every time. I've got to mention the intro though. I don't know Beam. I've never heard Beam. He's almost doing like this crazy frog type thing. He's giving you the rings and the bit of bums and all that kind of stuff. I think, again though, like the beat, I would rather them do interesting things like this, make interesting choices, even if it's taking people off guard, even if they're saying, you should have just kept it how it was. Nah, fuck that. Like, it's interesting, it's fun, it's exciting. I like hearing stuff like that, so props to him for doing that. It elevates the energy of the song. And then again, when Pop Smoke comes in, it's refreshing. It doesn't feel like you've just heard the same song for 20 times. It feels like, we're going this place, now we're going that place. And every time we come back to Pop Smoke, it just feels like it hits all over again in a new context, a new world, a new sound. And yeah, it's great. Up until this point, I think we're 7 tracks in, the album has been absolutely fantastic for me. I love Pop Smoke doing his How Many Men Wish Death Upon Me. Once again, solidifying that 50 Cent parallel. It's nice to hear Pusha T again on a Neptune's production. Bringing his A game. I definitely think this is his better verse on the album of the two. But yeah, like Manslaughter, this is definitely an S tier song on the album for me. Again, I understand the criticism. I've read it all. I'll address it later. But I can't get on board with it personally. Let's move on. Track 8, 30. I think it says more about the level that this album's been at up until this point, but like one of the ones before, this song doesn't jump out as much. There's no reason it shouldn't. It executes perfectly. I guess, for me at least, it just doesn't have an X factor to set it apart. And this is really where I differ from a lot of people. A lot of people didn't really care for those X factors. They thought that the formula was good enough to hold up in of itself. They didn't mind hearing 15 songs of straight drill from Pop Smoke, because that was the wheelhouse that he existed in, and that's the wheelhouse that fans are familiar hearing him in. But for me at least, when I'm hearing guys like Busy Banks and I'm hearing beats like this, it just feels a bit same up until this point. I was really getting in the groove of taking Pop Smoke in different directions. That being said, it's still a good song. There's nothing wrong with it. I like how Pop is flexing his mastery of tone yet again. He's dropping in and out of this heavy inflection to almost breaking his voice down as the beat drops out. he was a surprisingly multi-dimensional performer, given how new he was to rapping. I think at the time of his death, he'd only been rapping 1.5 years, 2 years, which is just really crazy to think about. But he just had such a good self-awareness of his voice and how to use it as an absolute weapon. Obviously, with a voice like that, like a talking voice like that, how could you fail? But no, he executes with it amazingly. I love the ad-libs on this one too. I mean, the ad-libs are really great through the whole album. I think it was engineered really well, the album. I think they obviously spent a lot of time with it. And yeah, everything just sounds crisp and nice and filled out, and yeah, just really gives you different things to catch the more you listen to the album, which I've done probably about 5 times now. So yeah, track 8, 30, solid song. Let's go to track 9, Beat the Speaker. So probably to a more of a degree to the last song, great execution, but nothing about this song that's memorable to me. Maybe it could have used a feature, or maybe they could have held it for a later album. I'm not too sure, but yeah, Beat the Speaker for me, it really represents the midpoint of the album where I'm beginning to feel a bit of bloat. I feel like this is one of the songs that they maybe could have cut. And they probably, I'll get to it later, but there's a few songs in the back end that were really different and once again exploring different directions. And I think it would have served the album if they had have integrated some of those songs into this section of the album, so that there wouldn't be that kind of mid-album slump where it loses you for a little while. My opinion, of course, I think songs like this are right up other people's alley. So, more power to those people. But yeah, for me at least, this is kind of the spot in the album where my attention wavers just a little bit. So yeah, let's move on. Number 10, Coupe. So this is back to the memorable, ear-catching music that the earlier songs had. I love the glitchy synths rolling into some light piano, dropping out, gunshot ad-lib, and then everything comes in together. It's a really cool way to start the track. I love that high-pitched synth next to the Pop's voice. It really fills out the soundscape. When Pop goes into that triplet flow, it's just super bouncy. I think he kills the drill flow through the whole album, but when he goes into the triplet flow, that Migos thing, I'd argue it's almost even better. And I think that's one of the cool elements of Pop Smoke's music, is he was doing... This is why he was able to appeal to so many people. He was doing the New York/UK drill thing, but he was finding ways to infuse it with the traditional kind of Atlanta strip club kind of thing, whether you want to call it mumble rap or trap or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I think he was finding a really cool middle point, and this song yet again proves that, just with his flow. My one complaint of this song is I just wish it went for longer. Maybe it would have been good to hear a feature on this. I'm not too sure, but yeah, this is probably one of the traditional Pop Smoke songs that I really, really enjoy off the album. This one and the one from earlier with his Day One, Brush 'Em. So moving on, track 11, What's Crackin'? Some cool glistening synth keys on the top end of the mix. I love the classic Pop Smoke cadence. 2 of the gruffest voices in hip-hop on the same track, Pop Smoke and obviously Takeoff. So this is probably the first example of someone trying to out Pop Smoke voice-wise, someone trying to compete with that presence, because Takeoff obviously has that. Takeoff with the Corona bar, which I could always go without. If there's one positive to Pop Smoke's posthumous music, is the guarantee that we will never hear a Corona wordplay from him. And I definitely take solace in that fact. Overall, for me, though, a pretty standard number on the track list. I'd probably add this to the category of give or take. I think it contributes to the bloat I was talking about earlier. For me, maybe we could have cut this. But yeah, again, we'll get to that later when we rank the track list. Track 12, Genius. Cool ensemble cast on this one. Is it just me, or has Swaley kind of been quiet the last few years? I don't know, because I really thought he was going on a run with Ray Shremmerd, obviously. Black Beatles was massive. I think it went number 1. And then they released Ray Shremmerd 3, that triple album. And I'm not sure how that did for them, but yeah, he's kind of been off the map a little bit recently. I mean, I guess he was on... it's hard to think of what he's been on. He was on a ZZ remix with Tiger. That was kind of cool. But no, it's cool to hear him show up again here. The song on subsequent listens is actually really wavy. The way Pop Smoke's rapping his flow around the beat and that spacey, reverbed choir sample kind of throttling in and out, it's almost phasing. It's really cool stuff. And I think this song doesn't reach as high as some of the other ones. It doesn't have the X factor, but it just executes so solidly that it has really awesome replay value. Yeah, so moving on to number 13, we've got Mr. Jones. And this is a return to the melodic rapping style of Shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Moon. Some really cool kind of spacey synth fluttering beneath the standard guitar sample. Pops is definitely working to his strengths with this one. Versatility-wise, he was just unbelievable, wasn't he? I mean, again, for someone who was rapping for only a year and a half, to have mastered both styles of the hard, straight drill stuff, but also the chart-topping melodic stuff, it was really incredible. Even if this style doesn't necessarily resonate with me as much as the harder stuff, I've got nothing but respect for it. Future, obviously, with a really groovy kind of verse, definitely picked the right beat for his voice. Not that he really got to pick the beat that he was going to go on this album, but no, they've placed him well for this. So not a standout song, but yeah, one of those 7 out of 10 kind of mid-range songs that fills out the track list pretty nicely. I'm going to group, so 14 and 15 grouped together. We've got Woo Baby Interlude going into Woo Baby. The interlude is an a cappella verse, and I think it's really cool that they put this in. I think it's a smart marketing move to give producers the chance to put Pop's vocals on their beat and really have a go at saying, how Pop can sound on different styles of production or even different genres of music. I say that to plug my video I put up yesterday. I just chucked Pop Smoke on a psych trance beat, so that was a lot of fun to do, and again reaffirmed to me just how effortlessly Pop Smoke's style can translate to different genres, which is a bit of a precursor to the next song. But yeah, sticking with this one for now. Vibey, late night kind of after party vibes. I love the record scratching leading into the beat drop. Between the beat and Pop's hook, I could definitely see this one being the real goer on the album and doing the streaming numbers. I could see it hitting that 400 kind of 500 mil range. I think his pull is probably stronger than it was last year, so yeah, definitely no reason why I couldn't do that. Not a huge fan of Chris Brown on it personally. His style to me is kind of rinse and repeat. You could say that that's just the genre that he is existing in, but to me it almost sounds like forced passion, like he's trying so hard to make us believe that he's feeling these emotions of love or lust or whatever it is, but it kind of comes across as soulless, and yeah, I don't know, not a fan of it. Doesn't add to the song for me, at least not compared to Pop Smoke, but a cool vibe nonetheless. Another probably 7 out of 10 range song. So yeah, as I alluded to, track 16, Demeanor, finally is what I was thinking, finally an interesting instrumental. The track list went through a stretch of monotony, but I love Pop on a almost poppy house beat. Dua Lipa 2, clearly designed to play for different audiences. I could almost hear this playing in a sneaker store or something like that. But yeah, to me, when I first heard it, I was like, wow, they've really put Pop in a different scene here. And then I did my research, and it turns out, no, this is actually Pop rapping on this beat. Like, he was actually making this song. And so it got me thinking, like, why are people so against Pop going on a beat like those Neptune's beats, when this song is clearly the furthest outlier on the album? Like, production-wise, this is the furthest away place that it goes to, and Pop did it himself. This is something that he wanted for himself. He was interested in expanding his style and going to different places and getting his foot in the door in different genres and different scenes. So yeah, I think I was surprised that this was actually an original song made by him, but at the same time not surprised, because that's what he wanted to do, and he does it exceptionally well. I think Dua Lipa really adds to him kind of stretching into this different space. I think she really facilitates that and makes it kind of cozy and nice and makes it make sense. So yeah, this is a really strong song for me, and definitely on the top end of the album list ranking. Moving on, track 17, Spoilt. Right off the bat, Pharrell's signature 4-count start. I like the lighter beats for Pop's personally. I think between this and Top Shotter, Pharrell's taking Pop to different places sonically that we didn't necessarily hear on the last album. And I just like it. I guess you could say this is a bit more of a TikTok-y kind of song. But I just like how weightless and easy it feels. It's just a sweet vibe. And it proves Pop doesn't have to be a hyper large presence to make a good track. It doesn't need to shake the car and, do all the crazy stuff. It can just be a lighter beat that just kind of just plays. And it's just like this kind of airy thing that it's just good vibrations, man. That's all it is. Definitely a conversation to be had about Pharrell and guiding artists into new lights that we haven't heard them in before. I think this is something that Pharrell has done his entire career, and it's probably one of his most commendable attributes, is just finding sounds for artists that other producers probably aren't giving for them, and finding ways to make it work. He's done it for Pusha T and Clips, obviously, and so many other occasions. I mean, that's probably a video for another day, but yeah, I think this is yet another example of Pharrell doing that for Pop Smoke, and in my opinion, to great effect. Track 18, 8 Ball. So this kind of reminds me of what Kid Cudi did for Schoolboy on his last album, Crash Talk. It's a bit of an anomaly on the album. It's kind of purposely directionless. The song doesn't really build momentum in any foreseeable way. It just kind of roams. It just kind of moves and it's not trying to go anywhere or do anything too powerful or make any big statement. It just kind of runs for its runtime. And it's perfectly comfortable in doing that. There's no sticky hook. There's no refrains. There's no distinctive sections in the instrumental. And for me at least, it just gets respect points purely off that merit. Super vibey. Again though, I have to ask the question, where was songs like this when the album was going through that middle spot and it was getting dry? Why did they wait until the last 20% of the track list to explore different directions? I think the album would have been much better suited to scrap a few of those middle songs. And again, I'll get to this later, but scrap a few of those middle songs and add in the more explorative 8 Ball or Merci Beaucoup or Demeanor, you know what I mean? To really mix it up and keep it interesting and keep that momentum that they were really building off the first, I think, 4 or 5 songs. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So track 19, Backdoor. Nice to hear Kodak still in the mix with the flagship rap releases. Of course, no surprise, Quavo on this album too. Quavo striking a really sweet cadence on this. It also reminds me of a song off Tierra Whack's Whack World, which I doubt, the Migos would probably be listening to or be influenced by, but hey, who knows, maybe he was. But yeah, Pop sounding extra 50 Cent on this one. Some of the melodic songs really bring that out of him, and he just does it so well. It never sounds cheap, it never sounds derivative, it never sounds like he's trying to be anything other than himself. He just lives in it. It's like whatever he wants to do, he just owns it, and it just sounds like he's been doing that his whole life. Like he just belongs in any genre, in any style, any tone, any beat you put him on. It just works. It's probably one of the most incredible aspects of his music. Kodak, perfect feature, comes in last. Again, like 4-2 Doug, kind of messy, but it breaks up the song, keeps it interesting, makes it a bit off kilter, takes it off the rails. But yeah, I love what he does for it. I enjoy this song, solid 7 out of 10. And then the great outro, track 20, Merci Beaucoup. Awesome, dreamy vocal chops on this one. Super spacey, almost psychedelic, which is a space. I mean, personal bias, I would love to hear Pop Smoke in that space more. I'd like to hear anyone in that space more, but I just think Pop works wherever you put him, so why not put him somewhere that interesting? And this song is probably the furthest we dip our toe into that world. So some really sweet synth whines seeping into the beat. I love how Pop approaches it. He's not being too wordy. He's giving the song room to breathe. The woo ad-libs beneath him really filling out those empty spaces. I don't know what the song sounded like before the label got their hands on it. I don't know if this was a finished song that he'd made or if they really had to piece it together. I don't know if they took a different beat and put his verses on it. But whoever did the song structuring for this just knocked it out of the park. It's perfect. I just love the decision to let the beat run for the hook with the ad-libs. It's the perfect outro. It's just spacey. It just gives you time to reflect and think and just process, and it gives you time to digest. Couldn't be better placed at the ending. So, yeah, if you've got recency bias or whatever the inverse to that is, but bias towards the start, then you'd probably love this album because I think it ends and starts really well. It's just that middle section that lets it down ultimately. So yeah, without further ado, I'm going to move on to my tracklist ranking. So last place, number 18, About a Million. Number 17, Beat the Speaker. So those two are probably the 5 out of 10s, the ones that I would definitely think about cutting. Also, you could throw in my number 16, What's Cracking with Takeoff. I think those three are just... yeah, they don't elevate the album. They don't take it in interesting directions. They just kind of meander. And I think there are songs such as Brush 'Em that do what they're doing, but a lot better. Coop being another. But moving on to the slightly better songs. Number 15, Mr. Jones. Number 14, 30. Number 13, Woo Baby. Number 12, Backdoor. So these are probably the ones that fill out the track list. They're not the best songs, but they don't have to be. I guess you could call them the deep cuts, and they function well enough. And I would have quite liked it to be a 15-song album. I think that would have gone down quite nicely. Because obviously not every song can be the X Factor song. Not every song can go to those high points. There's got to be songs where you just kind of, you just go back to the wheelhouse. Anyway, let's keep going. Number 11, Spoilt. Number 10, Genius. Number 9, 8 Ball. So really starting to enjoy these songs. I think from this section upwards, this is where I start putting the songs on my personal playlist. And then, of course, number 8, Demeanor. Number 7, Coop. Number 6, Brush 'Em. Number 5, More Time. Number 4, Tell the Vision. So these are 9 out of 10s for me. These are just exceptional, just awesome. These are probably what really set the album above the last one for me. I don't think the last one had as many songs of this level. It did have some, but that's 8 songs. Demeanor starts at 8th place. So that's 8 songs right there that are an exceptionally high level. And I think that's really a testament to the album, that half the track list is comprised of really, really incredible music. And then, of course, the top 3. 3, Manslaughter. 2, Merci Beaucoup. And number 1, the controversial Top Shotter. Love these songs, all of which for completely different reasons. I didn't expect to hear Pop Smoke in that space. And for me, that's really what it takes to get to that 10 out of 10. You need to take him in interesting directions. If you're doing what you traditionally do for him, then it can be as good of a song as you can make. But if it doesn't take me off guard, if it doesn't challenge me as a listener, then I'm not going to put it in that top echelon, So these ones do, and that's why they get the top 3. And these ones truly solidify this album as my favorite Pop Smoke project. So what are my ultimate thoughts? Well, all in all, I think this album is almost a tale of two halves. It's almost more Scorpion than Scorpion by Drake, of course. It's like the first 2 was one album, and the last 2 was a completely different album in a different genre. It's like one that once they flick the switch on the melodic stuff, they just never stop doing it. I really enjoy how all the features show up and pay their respects to Pop Smoke's legacy. A few of the shout-outs. Pusha T says, "Pop about a drop. I see the platinum in the clouds." Rick Ross, Pop Smoke gunshot, focused on one spot. 21 Savage, Pop Smoke gunsmoke, same thing. Dua Lipa, you can't say pop without the smoke. So it's really cool hearing these established kind of A-list artists pay their respects and just remember Pop Smoke in that light. And I hope that as time passes, we continue to do so, because although he did not shine for long, he shined brighter than most do in an entire career. So, as I do, I am crawling through internet forums trying to find words on Pop Smoke's latest release, positive or negative. These ones come from the Top Shotter comment section. First one says, "To be honest, I don't think Pop Smoke would have liked some of these beats." Well, look, that's neither for me or for you to say. At the end of the day, and I don't know you, but I don't believe you knew the man himself. So at the end of the day, it's really for his team and his label to decide what he would have wanted, and it's only for us to decide whether or not we enjoy it. And so if you don't enjoy it, that's fine. That's your prerogative. But I happen to enjoy it. So yeah, I think to belittle the prospect of the production altogether and the decision to do it, I think is unfair. But look, if it's not your cup of tea, then that's fine, and you're entitled to that opinion. The song's fire as fuck, but the version on the original beat would have been way better. W nonetheless. Yeah, again, I did hear the original beat, and I just thought if every song on the album kind of kept those original beats, it just wouldn't have felt like artistic progression for me. And I guess, and I'll get to this a little later, I guess it isn't for the label to decide how to progress Pop Smoke's artistry. But at the end of the day, there has to be some kind of evolution. It can't just be the same album released over and over again. You know, even Tupac's posthumous music, as they released it into the early 2000s, the production styles began to change, and they began to meet the updated style of rap music. And, you know, I'm sure many Tupac purists resisted it, and they said, well, he never would have rapped over this. But the fact of the matter is, you know, they've got to put him on something different. They've got to keep it interesting. They've got to spice it up. They've got to give you something different every time. Someone said first day on FL Studio type beat. Funny, but yeah, that's high. And I'm not even that big on Neptunes. That's probably a discography I'm yet to dive into. But I love this beat, man. I think it's warm. I think it's cool. I think it's just. It hits me. It hits me where I live. It's groovy. I love it. I wish more beats sounded like it. They really turned him into a pop star for money. Oh man, give me a break. Pop Smoke was trying to turn himself into a pop star. He wanted to. He wanted to expand. He wanted to be the biggest. You know, like he'd said it in interviews. He was trying to become a master of different domains. Like, what do you mean they turned him into a pop star? When he made Demeanor, like he already made that song. That's an original song that he actually signed off on. So you can't tell me this is more poppy than that song. And there's not a problem with any of it. He was destined to become a commercially successful rapper. This is what you do. On some real shit, 50 Cent needs to find a way to step in and get Pop Smoke's right and master, because we all know he knows how to handle this very well. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what you call money making off the dead. They don't lie when they say you're worth more dead than alive. At this moment, it's just quick and easy money for the label. Super harsh words. I think 50 Cent would understand, as well as Pop Smoke and as well as the label, that, again, like I'm trying to say, Pop Smoke was destined to go in a commercial direction. That's what he wanted for himself. He was going to be the biggest. You know, that's what he was shooting for. And to get there, you don't get there making the same, you know, you don't get there making Dior over and over again. You know, you make that, and there are those songs on this album. It's not like he's abandoned it altogether, but you've got to have a more diverse palette than just that, you know, and you've got to appeal to different audiences, and you've got to hit for different people. And I think, yeah, the team that put this together really understood that. So yeah, we'll move on to Manslaughter, because that was another of my favorites from this album, both top 3. This song should be in Grand Theft Auto 6. You are so right. I believe the game will be set in Vice City. Don't quote me on that. That's just what I've heard. And if that's to be true, then they better give us Rick Ross, and more Rick Ross. You know, that's all it needs. And yeah, this is luxurious. It's soulful. It's just beautiful. It's so good. It's something you definitely want to drive along the coasts of Florida to. Give Dream the flowers while he is here. Big yes, big agree. Love that. I think the Dream absolutely kills it. I think his meditation on death, on life towards the end is super touching, and it's definitely something that I am willing to give him his flowers for. Rick Ross was the perfect feature for this song, man. I agree. I'm not usually the biggest Rose fan, to tell you the truth. I find him to be a little one-dimensional, a bit of a one-trick pony. I think he gets carried by his voice a little bit much. It's almost like, how could you lose with that talking voice? But that being said, with this one, I love the way that again, you could say he gets carried by the production a little bit, but like he fills it out perfectly. Like they picked the right guy for the right job, you know? Like I like that the drums they're not too frequent. They kind of create space and pockets for Rick Ross to really emphasize certain things. And the way the beat swells up and down and it progresses, I just think it's great. It's one of the more interesting beats I've heard Rick Ross on. And I think a guy like him who's a bit more one-dimensional, he needs interesting production. Like, I almost feel like Rick Ross on Flower Boy production would just be the perfect marriage, because you've got a guy who just knocks it out of the park in terms of like, he does his job perfectly, like a Currency or like certain guys. Like they're doing the same sort of thing every time, but there's a complete master of it. So you've got to put that on top of interesting production, and that's when you really get a good product. Yeah, I almost feel like you got to put an interesting rapper over kind of a simple production, or a simple rapper over interesting production. And this song is the latter. So let's go on to Rap Genius. I love my Rap Genius. So let's go. Pop Smoke, Faith, first reaction. Kanye's only on it to say 2 words. This dude's next album is going to be so trash. Damn, Rap Genius, never change. Pusha T said Tyler has album of the year. Big disagree. Well, that's not really relevant to this. Pusha T really using his feature to promote his upcoming music. Yeah, I guess you could say that's a bit tasteless. The Dream sounds way more robotic than I expected. So you expected him to already sound some degree of robotic. I don't think you were approaching this album in the right frame of mind. 4-2 Doug sounds so much like Kodak. I did say that. Yeah, I agree with that big time. I think a lot of people would have that takeaway. And nothing wrong with that. I wish more people sounded like that. It's kind of interesting how one's from Florida, one's from the D, and yet they're so similar stylistically. I wonder if they're ever going to they could do a hell of a crossover album. That would be like a evil twin kind of situation. The Dua Lipa song sounds way more natural than I thought it would. Big agree. Pop Smoke basically lives there now, and why not? Wish we had gotten more of a rapping verse from Pharrell, because those are usually wild. But that Pharrell song sounds good. Thank you. I'm glad someone agrees. I think Pharrell kills it on the album. I'm going to champion that until the day I die. I think Pharrell is absolutely what Pop Smoke needed. A lot of it's starting to sound a little repetitive. Not as good as last year's album. Disagree there. I liked last year's album, but this one is just a notch above. Is more interesting. Probably I'd have to revisit the last one, but I felt the last one was almost even more bloated. Which, yeah, if you're a frequent listener here, you know that's probably one of my pet hates, is albums that are too bloated and that overstay their welcome, especially now in the streaming era, where you'd rather just throw as much shit at the wall to see what sticks rather than create a concise body of work. Someone here suggests that the 21 Savage 4-2 Doug song could be the hit of the album, the real goer. I predicted that it was going to be the Chris Brown song, but that's to be determined. I don't think the streaming has really come out yet to see which is the front runner, but we will see. This person says, Pop Smoke's mum said more than Kanye. And in my opinion, that's for the best. I think Pop Smoke's mum was doing that Jay-Z Black Album thing, which was perfect for the album. And I think Kanye was avoiding doing the Kanye That Part thing, where he basically completely derails the song, makes it all about him, all about the live show, the quote-unquote live show, as if you can't have a good song that also plays well live. You know, like you've got to sacrifice a song's integrity so that it's lit when you play it live. Like, give me a break. But yeah, Kanye sounds deader than Pop Smoke on this shit. Well, yeah, that's a bit, that's probably not great. They just loaded it with features who were happy to jump on the bandwagon. Does Pop even have a solo track? Again, man, like, Pop clearly has a lot of music, but not a lot of finished music. So you've got to fill it out somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, what's wrong with that? It's the nature of all feature albums. Since Tupac's posthumous albums, Biggie's posthumous albums, XXXTentacion. Like, they're all feature heavy. That's how it works. You know, you're not always going to get a Circles by Mac Miller, where it's just almost a complete body of work where you're just putting the finishing touches on. This person says, I wasn't a huge fan of Shoot for the Stars, but it was definitely better than this. It actually had some hits, some tunes. This was just boring trap about the same stuff. You'd think they could give the drill side a chance. Yeah, it's weird. In my review, I didn't really distinguish the drill and the trap. So, yeah, I'm not really sure what you're getting at there, you know, in terms of they should have had more of one rather than the other. I really just looked at it in terms of what's for the streets and what's for the clubs, you know, what's the hard stuff, what's the melodic stuff. But yeah, ultimately, I've got some agreements, I've got some disagreements. I think people are being a bit harsh on it. But yeah, I just want to basically move on to, I guess, my final thoughts on the album, because I think back to the original question proposed, is this Posthumous done right? It's a sensitive conversation, but ultimately I don't think a label taking an artist's posthumous music in a different direction is an inherently bad thing. In other words, I don't think the placement of Pharrell's beats, the mixing and matching of different verses, the addition of features that maybe he wouldn't have worked with, I don't think that's automatically a betrayal of Pop Smoke's legacy. And you can feel free to disagree, but I think if these elements work against the album and take away from your enjoyment of it, that's completely subjective and you're entitled to that opinion. And I can't argue with that. But when we're trying to talk about the matter of objectivity, is it an inherent vice? Is it automatically an evil? I don't think it is. I don't think you can just say that right out the gate. I think you've actually got to listen for yourself and decide based on the content on a song-by-song basis. From what I can see, if we're speaking objectively, and as I said before, Pop wanted to grow his brand. He wanted to build. He knew to do so, you needed to tap into different sounds and get a foot in across different scenes. And this album does exactly that. It'll definitely come to light just how many different scenes Pop Smoke will be adopted into after this album. You'll hear him in all kinds of different shops. You'll hear him played by your friends who didn't even really know about Pop Smoke before this. Like, that's what it's for. That's what it's going to do. It's gonna make Pop Smoke's name, into a rap legend, into a music legend, and I really do believe that. So ultimately, I think whenever a margin exists between the artist's intended sound and the sound that the label manufactures for the artists, the fan base resists. And I think that's just a story as old as time. The fan base is always going to pick the artist's side, no matter what. And in my opinion, it's not even a matter of Pop Smoke versus the label. It's not even the artist versus the machine. I think they've both worked. Pop Smoke's delivered amazing verses. The machine has put it together and taken those amazing verses and turned them into amazing songs. So I hope with time people grow with the music and come around to the fact that there's actually some really incredible moments on this thing, even if it is 4 or 5 tracks too long. So all in all, I'd say it's sitting at about a mild 8, maybe like an 8.4 for me at the moment. I like it quite a bit better than the last album. I think I wonder if there's going to be future albums, but that is to be seen. I'm really curious to see if there is more material to come in the vaults. But yeah, that's going to do me for this video. So thank you for listening. It was definitely fun to do something that's a bit more current and actually be part of the conversation as it's taking place. So definitely enjoyed doing this one with you guys, and hope to see you guys next time. Catch ya.
He gonna tear their ass up. Simple as that.